Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? When the Saints went into this offseason, they let Marcus May go. One of the things that we talked about pretty openly here at the safety position was, look, Marcus May missed 10 games a year ago, and so we saw a ton of Jordan Howden and Jonathan Abram. And they played well opposite Tyrann Mathieu. So my point was, I don't really care that they let Marcus May go. I think it's the right decision. And I think they could be just fine with Howden and Abram because both of those guys played really well a year ago when Marcus May wasn't there. The problem you had was just a numbers problem because you lost Marcus May and then didn't replace him with another player until they went and signed Will Harris from Detroit, which fits the mold exactly of what the Saints were looking for, a depth piece, a rotational piece, a guy who can also play special teams for you, who's been a starter in the league. And so I love that. That really felt like you were done there, unless if you could add a premium piece at safety. More on that in just a smidge. We'll get to more on that in just a smidge. But we learned on Thursday that the Saints did add another safety who was in New Orleans for mandatory minicamp and was at minicamp on a tryout basis. And it's a guy that a lot of people in this area know well. It's Roderic Teamer. So Roderic Teamer is from New Orleans, who prepped at Brother Martin, shout out, my dad's class of 71 grad, who went to Tulane and then started his NFL career with the Chargers and then spent the last 3 years with the Raiders. He spent 2 seasons in Las Vegas as a teammate of Derek Carr's because, of course, he did. There's a part of this story that's undeniably linked to Derek Carr and the Raiders. Now, it's worth mentioning Teamer was waived 6 games after 6 games a year ago because he had a DUI arrest in Las Vegas. He was arrested for DUI, and the team waived him. So he's a free agent, tried out for the Saints, and now they've signed him. The Raider component of this is something that we talked about a lot a year ago, and I understood a year ago. The Saints went all in on Derek Carr. And so if you have committed to Derek Carr being your franchise, then put people around Derek Carr that are going to help him manifest his best season. If Derek Carr likes a lineman or a receiver or a tight end, or that he says that safety is a good locker room guy, good culture fit, great. I understand it. I'm not saying you let Derek Carr make your roster decisions for you, but because you have so much invested in Derek Carr, yeah, he kind of should have a say. I mean, hell, LeBron James just hired the coach of the Lakers. Anyway, so the Saints signed last year Brian Edwards and Foster Moreau, and now they've got Nathan Peterman, and they signed Jonathan Abram. And a month ago, they signed Kendall Vickers. And a week ago, they signed Jesper Hurstead. And now they signed Justin Herron this offseason, the offensive lineman. And now they've added Roderic Teamer. They're basically just signing the Raiders roster from the past 2 seasons or 3 seasons. Every time they're looking for a free agent. And if the Raiders were like a good model organization, then I could see some value in that. But the Raiders aren't any good. I mean, the last time Derek Carr was there in 2022, they were 6-11. In 21, they went 10-7. Prior to that, 8-8, 7-9, 4-12, 6-10. I mean, you're pillaging one of the worst organizations in sports. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why that's the team that you're going after. It did a year ago because you were trying to surround Derek Carr with guys that made him comfortable. It don't make any sense anymore. Go get guys that are going to make your team better. Now, maybe Roderic Teamer can be that. But when I look, and by the way, the other component of this is that it is a cool story. Dude is from New Orleans, went to Brother Martin, went to Tulane, now gets to play for the Saints. That is a pretty awesome trifecta. When you get to play at 3 different levels, I guess 4 if you include like youth, Park League, you get to play every level of organized football in your hometown. That's awesome. That's a really cool story, and I pull for him, and I hope he does awesome. The other thing I look at really, though, is that safety room now is just really crowded. And I don't know that they really have more room for just another body, a camp body. You've got Tyron, you've got Jonathan Abram, you've got Howden, and then you've got Will Harris, the four that I just mentioned. You've also got J.T. Gray, who's going to make the team, who's a backup he's a backup safety, but really he's your special teams ace. And you've also got rookie safeties Lawrence Johnson and Millard Bradford in the mix as well. So you don't need more camp bodies at safety, and I don't know that there's a starting spot or a spot on this roster to be one, unless if you are like an elite level player, which is the other interesting part of it. Because ESPN put out this piece where they were looking at one final roster move for each NFL team, and the guy they mentioned, it's not like unique to this piece over at ESPN, like everyone has mentioned this. It's Justin Simmons. Like, could the Saints go out because you didn't? You obviously let Marcus May walk, you flat missed on that. But Justin Simmons is a guy who's a veteran player who's been a Pro Bowl caliber safety. He's a second team All-Pro 4 times. He led the NFL in receptions in interceptions 2 seasons ago. He's 30 years old. So you've got a guy here who spent his whole career with the Broncos, who's available, and would make a ton of sense to get, it's weird to say it this way, to get younger. You sign a 30-year-old, you get younger. But when you look at Tyron, who's now past 30 years old, you kind of are. But you certainly get a guy who, at his high, has a much higher ceiling, likely, than the other guys we mentioned. So if you can add Justin Simmons, and he immediately makes you better and is a starter when he comes in, cool. Adding bodies right now at safety, I don't know that that's actually the route. Now, back in the owners' meetings in March, at the end of March, when they do that the breakfast where like every head coach sits at a table and the media can come sit at his 10 top table in the hotel ballroom and ask him questions or whatever. Well, Dennis Allen was asked about the safety spot opposite Tyrann Mathieu and if it was set. Here's what he said.
I think it's still going to be something that we're going to be looking at. When you really look at Tyrann Mathieu is kind of the proven commodity back there. And then, look, we just brought Jonathan Abram back. Howden was a young player that we felt like did some good things. And yet, I don't think any of us are ready to just hand the position over to him. I think that's something that's got to be earned.
So it is fair to mention that was in March, the end of March. A little more than a month later, 5 weeks later, is when they signed Will Harris from Detroit. So the question is Will Harris that answer to go in and compete or to be the starter? Or do you try to add another starting caliber, all-pro caliber safety in Simmons? That's what we'll wait to see. The Saints have freed up a bunch of cap space. They could certainly offer a one-year deal on a veteran-type deal to Will Harris, similar to what they did with Chase Young. That would certainly be doable. But for Simmons, it's kind of a question of, do you have other options? Do you want to play in New Orleans? Do you want to go to a team that has a better chance to win? And that's kind of a crowded position group now. But it's a cool story, adding Roderic Teamer. I just don't know if that's the guy that I was thinking they would add to try to bolster that secondary at this point. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.